So my talk is actually entitled, I'll read one or two of them, Evolutions, Communities, and Infrastructure. And my role at Google was to take an internal project and make sure that what began as just a seed of an idea became a fully open project that is foundation located now. So we've created an open source foundation where the Kubernetes IP and trademark and governance live, as well as making sure that we continue to grow the Kubernetes project in both scope and engagement from external community. So the one thing that we all know about infrastructure is that it's always going to change. It seems like all of us have heard over the course of the day that infrastructure starts one way and then it becomes another, and now what do we do? Do we have to forklift everything? Do we have to actually make all of our work, redo all of our work, make changes? How do we make these changes? Does this happen at the application layer? Does this happen at the infrastructure layer? And of course, my answer is that the only constant is change. And in fact, books have evolved from, writing specifically, has evolved from, clay tablets and spoken word spoken word first, clay tablets next, all the way through written illuminated manuscripts into books, into Kindles, and information being transferred over the internet. But the key point here is we still have books. I imagine all of you have books in your home, and that you still find them important for some use cases. And this is the really, really big point of all of this is, I think most of us, I see a lot of gray hair out there, so welcome to the club. I think a lot of us have seen enough change in the industry to know that these things take a very long time. So I heard a little bit of fear in some of the conversations of, do we have to move everything to containers now? No, containers fix some problems. They don't fix all problems. And even if they fixed all problems, they weren't going to fix all problems today. So I'm here to say that Kubernetes, as an open source project, is way open, wants to have lots of your feedback, your engagement, your involvement as an adjacent community, the OpenStack community, having solved a different set of problems and finding some of the same problems that we are trying to solve in your infrastructure. So OpenStack set up a really interesting project, a really interesting governance, really interesting foundation, and was a way different way to govern a project when it first came out in 2010. It was the first time that I had ever seen a large group of companies come together and say, we want to drive forward a broader vision of change that allows more opportunity for users to give us feedback and do not find themselves locked into a particular vendor marketplace. 20 years prior, it had been all about vertical vendor marketplaces. And OpenStack has done incredibly well with a lot of these choices and a lot of this governance. And there's been lots that you guys have learned and evolved from, and that is really an inspiration. And I have to say that being brought into Google and Kubernetes to try to take this company-led project into a more community-led project, I have taken a lot of inspiration from OpenStack. So thank you, first. Thank you for being good leaders up front. And thank you for offering the grand vision of not vendor locked in opportunity to your end users to make use of existing technology they had, the servers that they already had, in a way that meshed with the new ideas of cloud that still fit within the constraints of existing regulation, existing compliance, and actually made it possible for large organizations to start the slow move toward the newer paradigm, which will have lots of benefits in the broad sense, the newer paradigm of cloud, which will have lots of benefits when or if the grand vision of utility compute someday is realized. So Kubernetes has taken a lot of a lot of inspiration from this and is focused on trying to democratize and make easy container orchestration of your application sets, so your application pods. We want to take even further abstracted an application developer's ability to work with an infrastructure without needing to know the specifics of the infrastructure. So taking it even further than infrastructure as a service, but still allowing more choice than something like platform as a service or software as a service. So Kubernetes is about orchestrating applications, scheduling applications, and making sure that the pieces of your applications are collected in pods and making sure that they are adjacent and near one another when they are scheduled on hardware so that you get the best possible performance. So have we reached peak confusion with containers yet? Anybody have a guess? Yes, peak confusion? Okay. Well, I think that this is really just a broader challenge of the industry right now because much like cloud 5 years ago, everyone wants containers to solve everything, and it's not going to. Containers will solve some things today. Containers will solve more things later, but we have a lot of learning to be done. We have a lot of regulation and compliance and security auditing to be done. We have a lot of evolution of the software to be done. I mean, there are still challenges and gaping holes. I heard Randy talk, actually I walked in the middle of this question, so please tell me if I get this wrong. I heard Randy talk a little bit about pet sets this morning. So pet sets are alpha in, or I should say we're alpha in the 1.3 release of Kubernetes. 1.4 came out on Monday. So there's exciting new stuff in that, and you should totally check out our blog post about that. But pet sets are brand new, and pet sets are evolving. But yes, pet sets are not a long-term necessary solution to forklifting existing large-scale enterprise applications into containers. That's not the idea. The idea is a bridge in order to allow some types of workloads that are more difficult to containerize now to be containerized now. So we may not be past peak confusion, but I'm kind of getting the feeling that we're starting to, because people are starting to say things like containers aren't going to fix everything. Broadly, though, Kubernetes is looking very, very broadly at how do we help our users get the best efficiencies, the best visibility, and the best engagement with their applications in a way that is useful to them. And we know that they still have VMs. We know our users still have VMs. We know our users still have hardware. We know our users still have pet sets. We know our users still have Oracle database clusters. And the only way that we can understand those problems and those challenges that face you is to get your feedback. So this goes to my love and my entire work life at Google, which is all about how to get the community engagement out of people who might want to use Kubernetes or are using Kubernetes, and get them involved to make sure that we have feedback. We have a very large group. When we started asking questions about OpenStack, we had a very large group of existing OpenStack contributing companies come to us and say, yes, we need to talk about this. Totally need to talk about this. I have a NASCAR slide for you here, but I will read logos because I think it's important to say. We have Huawei and Rackspace and CoreOS and eBay. Intel, Mirantis, IBM, and Red Hat are actually leaders in our Kubernetes community working with integration points for OpenStack. And that's huge. These are people who are contributing to OpenStack directly and who also want to find the intersection points and the interaction points between Kubernetes and OpenStack. So in these conversations, we started a group called SIG OpenStack, Special Interest Group OpenStack, in the Kubernetes community. And in these conversations, we came up with very broadly 2 ways, and we heard this just earlier. This is why I said this could be fairly short. 2 ways that people want to run Kubernetes within OpenStack. One, where Kubernetes is just an application on top of OpenStack. We, as the Kubernetes development community, have committed to make OpenStack a first-class cloud provider for Kubernetes. You want to run Kubernetes on AWS? Great, we want you to run it on AWS. You want to run it on Google Cloud Platform or Azure? Great, we want you to run it there as well. And we want you to run it on, or you want to run it on OpenStack? We want you to be able to run Kubernetes on OpenStack as well. So there's work being done in that way. And I think some of those projects were mentioned already. Murano and Heat, Magnum, and Courier are all 3 projects inside of OpenStack that are making it more clear for, or more easy for Kubernetes to integrate. Now, where we need help in the Kubernetes community is that OpenStack expertise, helping us build better end user experience to bring up the Kubernetes container framework on OpenStack. So we have things like kubeup scripts, and we're building something called kubeadmin, but more OpenStack capabilities from there and more engagement from the OpenStack community there would be very helpful. The other way that we found people wanted to run OpenStack and Kubernetes together was having Kubernetes as the base layer, which then had containerized OpenStack running on top of Kubernetes as its containerization of the control plane, which then managed its own cluster of OpenStack servers. And this has spawned 3 separate projects that are being worked on through our special interest group. The Fuel CCP from Mirantis is being worked on. Cola, which is, I believe, a Big Tent project for OpenStack, and Stackinettes by CoreOS, which was, I think, previewed in Austin. So these are the existing projects and the existing work that is being done in the Kubernetes community. We need more help understanding what and where our gaps are, and we want to support this very much as a positive-sum game. The more work and information we can get from you about where Kubernetes and OpenStack don't fit together now and you want them to fit, the more we can actually make them fit better and grow to a better end user experience. So, ways to get involved. There are 2 that I'm going to send you to, and they should be super quick. So slack.kubernetes.io, we live, we breathe, we chat all over Slack. So slack.kubernetes.io has a chat room called SIG OpenStack, Special Interest Group OpenStack. Great place to find out what is going on. And there's also a Google group, Kubernetes-SIG-OpenStack, and we really do welcome anyone who is coming in wanting to offer ideas and solutions, preferably not, I need this feature, here it is, fully baked, here's 10,000 lines of code. But please come in, come join us, see what we're working on, ask questions, and then see if you can help guide us in ways that is helpful to you as well. But come join us, that's the key. Thanks.